All right, welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be a good one. Gervonta Davis's pay-per-view with Leo Santa Cruz is on deck. And so are the pay-per-view between Jamal Charlo and Sergey Derevyanchenko. Jamal Charlo versus Jason Rosario. And the UK's leading promoter, Eddie Hearn, gives his thoughts on it. And I cannot believe this. I actually agree with everything Eddie Hearn said. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, got some really good cards coming up out of Showtime over for the second half of the year, provided obviously that none of the fighters or the people in their camp contracts COVID and would cause a delay, a postponement, or a cancellation of the fight. But assuming that all of those that does not happen, and that is a big assumption, we should be getting some really, really good fights the second half of the year. Of the fights that were mentioned, the highlighted fights you have on Showtime, because we're going to talk about Showtime. There are, obviously, the PBC has two contracts or two networks that they deal with. One is Fox, and the other one is Showtime. So Showtime announced their card, and of those cards, there were two pay-per-views on them. One is, Gervonta Tank Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz, or Leo Santa Cruz, depending on how you pronounce it. And the other is a double-header pay-per-view between Jermell Charlo and Jason Rosario for the IBF, WBA, and WBC 154-pound championships. A great fight. Something I am seriously looking forward to. Then you have, or before that, because I think that'll more than likely be the headline, is Jamal Charlo versus Sergey Derevyanchenko. Now, Derevyanchenko and Charlo, Big Charlo, is for the WBC 160-pound title. So it's not as big a fight, but those are definitely two of the top 6 middleweights in the world fighting one another, right? Jamal, because if you say who the top 6, you say Canelo, right? Canelo, Gennady Golovkin, Demetrius Andrade, Jamal Charlo, and then right there it's got to be Sergey Derevyanchenko, right? Gave very good fight to Gennady Golovkin. Some people thought he won. I don't think that he did. I think Gennady Golovkin won that fight. Gave a good fight to Daniel Jacobs, right? So you could actually put Daniel Jacobs there, probably ahead of Sergey Derevyanchenko, but still, he's right there. Top 5 or 6 light middleweights in the world. So that's a very, very solid fight, man. There should be nobody with a complaint about that. Now, what Eddie Hearn says, and this is, I'm telling you, man, I'm getting old or I'm getting soft, one or the other, because, I'm actually going to agree with something that Eddie Hearn, who is the CEO of Matchroom Boxing, had to say about it, because he acknowledges something that is a truth. I can't believe I'm saying this. He acknowledges a truth about Gervonta Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz. He said that is a pay-per-view. Gervonta Davis is a star. That is a pay-per-view. Now, that's something that I've been telling people for a while, that people who pay attention to just the mainstream media do not understand. There was somebody actually on my page that was trying to tell me that Vasily Lomachenko was the guy that had, that was the bigger star than Gervonta Davis. And I was like, hold on, man. Absolutely not. Gervonta Davis has sold out stadiums in 4 different cities in the United States. And there are very few fighters that would be able to do that, where you can just what do you call this? Plug and play? How many plug and play fighters are there? Somebody you can just grab him and put him anywhere. And then wherever he is, in a major metropolitan area, he's going to really sell big. There's not a lot of fighters, 5 or 6 fighters tops in boxing that is really a plug and play type of star, right? Doesn't matter where Floyd Mayweather Jr. goes to fight, going to make a bunch of money. Doesn't matter where Canelo Alvarez is going to fight in the United States. it's going to make a lot. It's going to make a lot of money. There'll be a lot of people there for Canelo Alvarez. His name is virtually ubiquitous in the in boxing circles, right? But people thought that this particular person thought that Vasily Lomachenko was the guy. But if you think about it, or if you look at it, Gervonta, first of all, I don't know of Vasily Lomachenko selling out anything, other than maybe a ballroom at the Madison Square Garden in New York, because they're not fighting in the big portion of the place. A lot of times Vasily Lomachenko was fighting in the ballroom, something with like 4,000 people in there, right? And he doesn't have in the United States a home like a Baltimore where Tank can go and he can sell out in Baltimore, right? There's places in the United States like Cleveland or Toledo, Ohio, that Robert Easter can pack the place out at, right? But so he has his own regional home, and he could sell out in LA. He has sold out in LA. He has sold out in Atlanta. He has sold out in New York. And the dude is a star. If you look at the numbers he has on Showtime, his numbers are growing on Showtime, but Showtime doesn't have a very big subscription pool. But for a guy under 135 to get like 500,000 people to watch him on Showtime, dude, those are big Showtime numbers, right? Not too far off of what Errol Spence Jr. is doing, or what Mikey Garcia would do on Showtime. But unlike Mikey Garcia, not like Mikey Garcia, but like Errol Spence Jr. Again, Gervonta Davis is plug and play. He can go wherever he goes. He's going to actually have a big gate along with the fee associated with the networking fee. What do you call it? The licensing fee from the network. So, dude, Eddie Hearn points that out. He didn't point it out in that much detail, but he points that out, and that's obvious. Now, what he says about Jermall Charlo and Jermell Charlo is that he doesn't believe that that's a pay-per-view fight. He's like, watch those numbers. Now, he throws salt on that, right? And he says, watch the numbers for Jermall Charlo and Jermell Charlo. That's where you're going to have some type of issue, because right at the cuff, you're like, oh, those are solid fights, but I don't know if those are pay-per-view fights. Now, see, that is where I agree with what he said, but I don't agree with his conclusion. So in the case of Gervonta Davis and Leo Santa Cruz, if that fight can do very, very well on its own from pay-per-view, because of Gervonta Davis and because of the interest in Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz is a good name to match up with Gervonta Davis. Not somebody to take seriously in the fight. Dude, he lost to Carl Frampton. He's going to get mopped by Gervonta Davis. I almost have no fear about that fight. But they could actually make money on that fight. But I think what happens with Jermell Charlo and Jermall Charlo is that you're putting it on pay-per-view, and they're giving you a double header. So you're getting 2 world championship fights, right? Which is a good value depending on how much they're charging for the fight. For $50, I'll take it. For $50, I'll definitely take that for $50. And but the purpose of doing it wouldn't necessarily be to, you're just trying in that scenario to get that fight off of your budget, right? Because pay-per-view means when you have pay-per-view and you could write your agreements where the fighter gets paid off, most of his money comes off the back end from the pay-per-view. So that would allow the fighter to take a gamble and say, yeah, I'll take less up front because I know that it's going to be on pay-per-view. And as long as it sells 200,000 pay-per-views or 150,000 pay-per-views, then hey, in a coronavirus situation, I'm going to be able to fight, make good money for the fight, probably around the same money that I would make for a regular televised fight on Fox or whatever, if everything was normal. But in this case, I get to allow Showtime to take a little bit of break, from what they're guaranteed, right? So they know that they can manage their cost or manage their budget. But in exchange for that, we want to be able to get a bigger upside of whatever it is that comes in. So in that scenario, that could be a good use of a pay-per-view mechanism for Jermell and Jermall, right? And now I'm telling you, that because that is a scenario and that's an approach that I take on this channel. You know, like you'll notice, and I appreciate you guys so much for your support, that I put ads in my videos, right? Now, if I didn't put ads in my videos, it would, you know, more people would watch them, but it would probably bring in less money, right? So you just have to figure, all right, if you have a goal for yourself, if you have a goal for your channel, in this channel, we raise money and we work with people and we use the money for things. So it's important. So we'll say, okay, I would rather have 3,000 people watch my video and know that, you know, there's a certain amount of revenue that's going to be generated than have, you know, 20,000 people see the video and there's very limited revenue coming from it. So it makes a situation where you have fewer views, but you make your quota versus having a bunch and you losing money. So I think that's a scenario where Showtime could be working with Charlo and thinking that, like, yeah, we could put this fight up on regular Showtime and nobody would have to pay for this and more people would watch it, but we're not going to bring in any revenue, and that's going to limit our budget from being able to, you know, from using different portions of our budget to bring other fights. So we're willing to take that gamble, right? So I think that from everything that I can see from the very far outside looking in, that's a smart business decision for Showtime. And it could be done for the same, you know, the same reason, the same tactic, which is putting the fight on pay-per-view, could be used to for one reason for one fighter and another reason for another fighter. When HBO would put somebody like Canelo Alvarez on pay-per-view, they were putting Canelo Alvarez on pay-per-view because they believed that he was going to sell a lot and they were going to make a lot of money. When they put Gennady Golovkin on pay-per-view, they were like, we got to pay this guy a lot of money because eventually we want him to fight Canelo Alvarez. But if we pay him a lot of money, then we're going to have a lot of money coming out of our budget. What we would rather do then is put you on pay-per-view and understand, hey, look, this is how much we're going to give you guaranteed, and you'll get the upside of whatever extra comes in through the pay-per-view. And if you're able to sell it like it should sell it, then, hey, man, you're going to make a lot of money, but we're not going to put our budget at risk. And that is what it seems like they're doing. So I appreciate what Eddie Hearn said in that regard. And I agree with what he said about Tank being a star, Jermell Charlo and Jamal Charlo having some, you know, room, some growing to do in that area. But this pay-per-view, I ain't going to watch the numbers, dude, because I know what the deal is. There's going to be, they're going to do decent numbers. They're going to do 200,000, 250,000 pay-per-views. I would suspect that Gervonta Davis and Leo Santa Cruz are going to do 300, 350,000 pay-per-views, somewhere around there. But, and these guys already know those numbers, and it's going to be what it is. So anyway, that's my take on the situation. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.